I'd like to thank a couple of people in particular before we start. One is a journalist stood right here, Mr. Jamie Diffley, who, with great foresight, when he was working for the Rochdale Observer about 7 or 8 years ago, did an article on the studio in Haywood and said there should be a blue plaque on it, was his opening line. Well, Jamie, you achieved two. And if Andy Pearce is here from the People's History Museum, who used to run the Touchstones in Rochdale, Andy's supposed to be here somewhere. Andy also, when we did the Rockin' Rochdale exhibition in 2005, which was a great exhibition at Touchstones, and I don't want any more people from Rochdale asking me where Touchstones is, because you need to get there. It's great, and it's just at the end of the Esplanade, and even if you're not from Rochdale, you need to go there, because they have great exhibitions on. Anyway, Andy Pearce also said, he said, you know what, Chris? He said, those two studios should have blue plaques on them. And that was about 4 or 5 years ago, and we started lobbying, and I won't go into the details because I'm trying to stay non-political today. So, but thanks particularly to Greg Cousins, Councillor Cousins, to Councillor Colin Lambert, to David Pugh, and all the people from the museum stores, and Andy Kelly, all the people at the back door, John Brierley, Peter Hook, a few people who aren't here anymore who sort of contributed to this. Andy Burgoyne, who used to run People Print and used to be involved in bands and Deeply Vale, and he used to actually be at the Broadwater Centre where Carol is now. So in memory of Andy Burgoyne and Dave Edwards, a few people at back door mentioned them yesterday. Dave Edwards actually built the stone wall in the studio upstairs, and he built a lot of things. His joinery was never any good, but his enthusiasm was great. Like everything in Rochdale, nothing was any good, but the passion was tremendous. Well, a bit like the women, really. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. I resemble that. Anyway, I'd like to get Dominic, Brunt, Peter Hook, John Robb, Sean Hera and John Brierley here, please. What happens is we all grab one of these. Yeah. And you pull that Prince Charles. I don't know how many there is. Well, everybody just grab one. If you don't want it, you grab one, share one. Just all grab one.
Are we ready? Yes. 2, 2, 1.
3, 3. Can we, we'll try and get a speech now. We'll start off with Andy McCluskey from OMD.
Throw me in the deep end. All right. I haven't been in town for the earlier part, but this is my bit of personal history that links me with Rochdale. This is the first place that Orchestral Minutes in the Dark ever recorded. We recorded 2 tracks here for a Factory Records first single, and we came back and did the demos that got us our deal, that got us onto Virgin Records. So this really was a major stepping stone in my career that spanned 32 years. So I'm delighted to be here, and I shall now hand the microphone to Mr. Hook.
1, 2, oh yeah, that's what you always do to test them, you see, 1, 2, and you know they're working. I'd like to thank Chris for this. I mean, when he started, I thought it was a bit ridiculous, to be honest. But when I saw the list of people that had worked here and recorded here, and then saw the amount of records and the way that, I think we changed the world. And I think that this little corner of Rochdale did change the world of music anyway. So I want to thank everyone. It's really weird seeing all these old people. And I'm sure it's weird for them seeing me. So I'd like to pass you over to John Robb now, who's going to finish off with a few choice words because he's an author.
What do you mean, swear words? Yeah. The first time I came here was 1979, because I'm a little younger than Hooky, but not much. And we did an overnight session here, and it's the first time we've been to Rochdale. We came from Blackpool though, so we're used to towns that looked a bit like this. So I actually came back quite a lot of times. I did about 15 records here. and I spent about 5 years producing stuff when Sean owned the studio. Sean was going to do a speech, but he doesn't want to do one. So so I think I've probably been in the studio more than anybody else. I think it had the best live room of any studio I've been in the world. I've been to a lot of studios. It's a shame it's all stuff full of furniture now. I think that's quite tragic, really, because I think the studio itself, if it's still a studio now, would have a lot to offer to a lot of modern bands. I think it shut down at a time when people didn't really want to be in bands anymore, so that was quite sad, really, because there's more bands now than there ever has been, so this would actually be a really successful space if still existed. The thing I really noticed, though, is all the graffiti's gone, because it used to be like loads and loads of bands' names sprayed on that wall, and spraying that wall on. I think we sprayed our name on that one wall over there, but somebody's painted over it. So that's kind of missing as well, because that'd be a great heritage site. Instead of like a blue plaque, all the graffiti's still up there. So so I had loads and loads of really interesting stories of being. I bought my guitars in that room and that guitar shop next door. But there's a lot of memories. First time being up here for about 10 years. It was a really great spot. I think it's quite tragic. It's become like a piece of history, but that's like all rock and roll. It's just all become a piece of history. But it's and so many like really fantastic records got made here. As I think I did a book about Manchester and interviewed John Brierley, who's one of the key people setting up the studio. And you made a great point that this was the post-punk studio. All the great post-punk records got made in this studio. And if you actually look at the list of stuff that actually got made in here, it's a complete history of the music that came after punk and changed people's attitudes to music for the next 20, 30 years. It all came out of that room in here in Rochdale, which is like a really, really fantastic piece of musical history. Thank you very much.
Right, John Brierley wants to not make a speech because he's a bit overwhelmed, but we're going to have, on his behalf, we're going to have Dominic Brunt, or you may know him better as Paddy from Emmerdale Farm. Here we go, Dominic.
I'm not used to having a microphone. I'm just here because John Brierley is a cameraman at work. We always used to know him as John the cameraman, and then another cameraman, Bob, said, "Do you know who that is?" And I said, "Yeah, it's John the cameraman." He said, No, that's John Brierley." I went, John Brierley? Oh my God! And he's the owner, and he's so modest. He has no idea of his importance in history and his place in musical history. And he's probably hidden right, because I can't even see him now. And I bet you any money he's at the back with his head down. He's there, hidden again. So I'm honoured and flattered to be asked by John to come along as a fan of the music. And it's just to point out that that's John Brierley there. He's a living legend. And ladies and gentlemen, John Brierley.
We will be showing some embarrassing film of John and Sham and a lot of other people in a minute on the big screen. There's a little story that John did an interview with me at a time when he was doing interviews, and he tells me that Tony Wilson came in, and funnily enough Oliver Wilson came to interview me yesterday for the BBC, and he didn't know half of the stories to do with Rochdale and Haywood, so he's really keen on it as well now. But John told me this little story that when Tony came up, and Tony was here a lot, I used to give him lifts to the station and lifts into Manchester because he was always late for doing the news at tea time. And the first time he came, he said to John, "I can either give you 80 quid cash for this session." Was it 80 quid, John? About 80 quid. "Or I can give you a points deal on Joy Division sales." And John said, he said, "Well, let me listen to the band." And he listened to the band and he said, "I'll take the 80 quid. So, Hooky has got a cheque for him here for 3 and 6pence.
Thanks for coming, Brian. All the way from Stacksteads. Brian makes amazing, amazing guitars, violins, but most of all, he's a lovely person who hands out sweets to kids. After I tell him to.
Really?
I've not brought today.